I want to talk about the possibility of the Broncos trading for Jalen Ramsey after the Miami Dolphins star cornerback and the team mutually agreed to explore trade options, according to Ian Rappaport. So, surface level, Denver does not jump out to me as a team that would be in the running for Ramsey. They just gave Pat Surtain a monster contract extension, and contract aside, they have Pat Surtain, so you never really think of the Broncos needing a corner when they've already got the best corner in the National Football League. But the more I thought about it, I wouldn't say the more I tried to convince myself of it, but the more I started to map out a slight path, we'll put it, for the Broncos landing Ramsey. And this path is rooted in the decision makers between George Paton and Sean Payton. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. But I'll just lead off with Ramsey to Denver is unlikely, but I don't think it's impossible. And I think that's an important distinction because with the draft coming around the corner, it's important to note that every single team is going to be doing some level of kicking the tires on good players and good prospects that could be in reach for them. Now, the reason why I'm not just going to completely shut the book and slam the door on Ramsey potentially coming to the Broncos is when you go back to George Paton's early tenure with the team, like his first season with the Broncos, remember what he invested a ton of in? Corners. I remember my first year covering this team for Chat Sports, and there were 5 notable corners on this team in 2021. Kyle Fuller, signed by the Broncos, joining Vic Fangio after a long stretch together in Chicago. Ronald Darby came over. Pat Surtain was the 9th overall draft pick. Bryce Callahan was a highly paid nickel corner at the time. Michael Ojemudia was a 3rd-round draft pick the season prior. That's a lot of investment into the cornerback position. And I think that gives us a window into what George Paton values the most when it comes to ranking positions. So we have some evidence that he likes to make sure that the cornerbacks are well stocked. That is not a position he wants to go light at. And with Sean Payton always being aggressive when it comes to offseason moves and using some pretty good, valuable assets on corners while he was in New Orleans, I feel that Jalen Ramsey, while it's still a slim chance, I don't think this is something we completely just brush off as impossible, never in a billion years would this happen. If it was a player at, say, quarterback, yeah, I think we could brush that off as never in a billion years does this happen because you already have a quarterback. And while you do have an outstanding corner in Pat Surtain, opposite of him, I don't think there's question marks, but I think there's willingness to explore options a little bit, right? Because you've got Riley Moss, who I think showcased a ton of potential in his second year, but really just his first year as the starter. And I think Jaquan McMillian's one of the most underappreciated cornerbacks, period, in football. But after those 3 guys, can we all agree there's some level of uncertainty at corner? And I'd be willing to explore better options to improve that room because we saw once Moss went down last year how vulnerable that defense became. So Ramsey could be an excellent, not just depth piece, but I think he could be more than a backup corner. I think he could be someone that takes, I would say, the next step in his career, but takes a sideward step, maybe to a different position. And that's where I want to transition right now, too, because last year, Ramsey in 17 games showed that he is still a starting quality player in the National Football League. And over the last 4 years of his career, he still has great ball skills. 4 picks, 3 picks, 2 picks. I mean, he has a knack for the football. Look at the pass breakups, too. That part of his game is not really going away. Is it the same when he was a Pro Bowl, All-Pro player in 2021? Probably not. But I don't think you'd be paying him what he was getting paid back then and would have required for a trade for him back then. So here's where I'm building up to. All right. You don't have to go for Jalen Ramsey, the corner. How about Jalen Ramsey, the DB? How about Ramsey takes that next step in his career as a versatile, older veteran defensive back that offers you versatility between cornerback and safety. Something we saw Kareem Jackson do. Remember when he started off in Houston, he was a corner coming out of Alabama. But what do Broncos fans know him best as? A safety. Is it that preposterous to say, hey, Ramsey, we've got some corner depth concerns. So if an injury were to pop up there, boom, you slot right in immediately. But if our top 3 guys stay healthy, we like them, we like what we're paying them, so we can find a home for you kind of floating a little bit between corner and safety. And could you imagine a secondary with a healthy Talanoa Hufanga, Patrick Surtain, Jalen Ramsey just eyeing down the quarterback? You probably clicked on this video thinking, this is dumb, we don't need to trade for Jalen Ramsey. And maybe at this point in the video, you're going, you sold me. I think Jalen Ramsey, Surtain, and Hufanga, and Brandon Jones, and Riley Moss, with this incredible NFL #1 pass rush in sacks a year ago, could be the thing that really ends Patrick Mahomes' reign at the top of the AFC West mountain. You get the second step forward from Bo Nix in year 2. You pair him with a rookie running back like Omarion Hampton and that top 5, top 10 offensive line. Cortland Sutton coming off the #1 year of his career. Evan Ingram slots in at tight end. To me, that seems like a roster that could really give the Chiefs a run for their money in the division for the first time in a decade. Ramsey might not be the missing piece of this team, but Ramsey might be the piece that pushes this defense over the edge and gets them in the playoffs in a spot where they're not there as like a feel-good story as a 7 seed, but they are there to win playoff games, plural. And the versatility and the depth that Ramsey could bring, tell me that's not a little bit intriguing. So let me toss you your way. I'm going to throw the ball into your court. Do you think the Broncos should pursue Jalen Ramsey? When I saw the tweet from Rap Sheet this morning, I did not wake up thinking, Bronco. But now I'm standing here going, Bronco? All right, before we look at the rest of today's episode, I do have to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard to get playoff seats. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. So if you want to go see the Nuggets or you want to go see the Avs or the Rockies, make sure you check out Game Time. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Now, I put all this information in the comments and description of today's video, but take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Shout out to Game Time for supporting us here at Chat Sports. Go support them as well if you want to go see your favorite team play. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So if I got you hooked onto my line for Ramsey coming to the Broncos, let's now talk about what it would really cost to get, because that's a very important part of the equation. I've got 2 trade ideas. One is pre-draft, one is post-draft. If the Broncos get this done tomorrow, I think it could look something like this. Denver gives up a 4th-round draft pick, and they get Ramsey in a 7th. This way they don't lose total draft capital. They are just falling from 4 to 7, and the Dolphins jumping up a couple of rounds. Miami gets a player who I think I don't really know why are ready to move on from. They gave him a 3-year extension back in September, but that's for Miami to figure out. So that's one idea for a pre-draft trade if you're wondering what's a fair compensation. I mean, Ramsey was traded to Miami in 2022 for a third and a player. This is around a fourth to an early fifth. Yeah, a little bit older. Seems about fair to me. Now, post June 1, which will also be after the NFL draft, is a lot easier for Miami to manage financially when it comes to a trade. So if the Dolphins tell Ramsey, we're not dealing until after June 1st, when we get much more cap relief for a trade, because we can split the dead money over 2 off seasons, I think a future 5th-round draft pick is in the neighborhood of what Miami could expect to get in a trade. They're going to get his contract off their books. The Broncos probably agree to a new kind of rework deal for Ramsey. He's going to not get total money he signed up for, that $72 million contract from Miami, but that's why players always look at the guarantees, or agents definitely do. So this is an idea of what a pre-draft and a post-draft trade could cost for the Broncos. Now, if a trade does happen, or we get some rumors, we get some updates, we're going to keep you informed. So make sure to subscribe. I would love to get to 35,000 subscribers by the time the NFL draft kicks off. So do me a big favor and click that sub button down below. Now, at Chat Sports, we have a Dolphins channel. It's run by my coworker, Nick Roloff, and he put together a couple of Ramsey destinations. So while we just kind of go down this vein for a moment, here are the 5 teams he cooked up. And he does not have the Broncos on there. I don't think that's a crime or an offense. Like I said, when I first saw the trade, I didn't think Denver immediately, but I'm just starting to think of how aggressive the Broncos could be in this offseason, in this draft, knowing, hey, we have something in Bo Nix. There's blood in the water for the Chiefs after what the Eagles just did to them in the Super Bowl. So let's strike while the iron's hot, and let's add to this already impressive defense and make it, even one bit more outstanding. So I feel that these teams all have some good pros and cons to them. If I had to pick one, maybe the 49ers, I think, are kind of going for a little, not like a retool. Eagles have got 2 good young corners. So unless they want to make Ramsey a safety, which I proposed, and sort of like Asante Samuel, I don't think they make a lot of sense. The Cowboys love to do this. They like to say that they're interested so their fans know that they're trying, but they're actually never interested. The same thing happened with Cooper Kupp. Vikings and Chargers. Keep an eye on these 2 teams right there. So to kind of go full circle and round out this video, if Denver does not get Jalen Ramsey, that should not be a surprise to anyone. And I'm confident with these current corners, right? The purpose of this video is not Riley Moss should not be a starting cornerback on this team. If anything, Riley Moss showed us how valuable he was last year when he was off the field. Remember that 4-game stretch after the Raiders win in Las Vegas and some of the losses they picked up after that? They were desperate to get Moss back on the field. So I am confident with, of course, Pat Surtain. It's more so talking about Moss and McMillian here. I'm confident that those 2 guys are, starting caliber players, and I don't think they have to trade for Ramsey to put Jalen in the starting lineup. I think a trade for Ramsey is to add some depth at the cornerback position and also add a third safety to Brandon Jones and Talanoa Hufanga, because P.J. Locke just didn't get it done for me last year. So I like these corners, but I could see Denver looking to bring more firepower, bring another nuclear weapon to this defensive back room when they face Herbert, Harbaugh, Reed, Mahomes, Pete Carroll, and Geno Smith. 6 games right there against quarterbacks who, if the worst of the bunch is Geno Smith, the ceiling is pretty terrifying. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's episode, but let's wrap it up by naming a random Broncos corner. I think we've done this before, but it's always fun to kind of revisit it a little bit. So let's name a random Broncos corner. I'm thinking of one in my head. All right, I've got mine. Here we go. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Michael Ojemudia. I'm cheating a little bit because we included him in the video earlier, but 3rd-round pick out of Iowa, who I thought was decent for a rookie, and then out of the league 3 years later. So that's the NFL for you right there. Okay, appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to sign off and catch up with you all later.